We're here to have fun and play. We're here to sing and pray. We're here to lift our voice and say, oh, God is here with you today. God is here. Hip, hip, hooray. God is here, and He's here to stay. Oh, Crossing Kids!
'Twas the night before Christmas, when all through the house not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse. The stockings were hung by the chimney with care, in hopes that St. Nicholas soon would be there. The children were nestled all snug in their beds, while visions of sugar plums danced in their heads. And Mama in her kerchief and I in my cap had just settled our brains for a long winter's nap, when out on the lawn there arose such a clatter. I sprang from my bed to see what was the matter. Away to the window I flew like a flash, tore open the shutters and threw up the sash. The moon on the breast of the new fallen snow gave a luster of midday to objects below, when what to my wondering eyes did appear but a miniature sleigh and 8 tiny reindeer, with a little old driver so lively and quick, I knew in a moment he must be Saint Nick. More rapid than eagles his coursers they came, and he whistled and shouted and called them by name. Now Dasher, now Dancer, now Prancer and Vixen, on Comet, on Cupid, on Donner and Blitzen, to the top of the porch, to the top of the wall, now dash away, dash away, dash away all. Merry Christmas, Crossing Kids.
guys, welcome back to the Big Picture Bible Story with Emily. I'm so glad to be back with y'all. Today, I wanted to do an activity with water, and I wanted to see if my Christmas items over here would sink or float. Do you know what it means to sink? That's right. That means if something's in water and it goes down to the bottom, it sinks. But if it floats, that's right, it's going to stay on the top. So I'm going to let you guess at home. I'm going to pick up my item and I'll tell you what it is, and you'll make a quick guess. Do you think it's going to float on top of the water, or is it going to sink to the bottom? And you'll see that it sinks because you'll see it kind of down here in your picture, okay? So my first Christmas item I'm going to pick up is my tape. At Christmas time, a lot of times we use tape to wrap our presents. So do you think this is going to sink or float? Okay, you got your guess? All right, let's put it in and see what it does. Let's see. It's kind of floating, guys. It's just kind of hanging out. I don't know. Right now it's floating. We'll see if we give it time and see what it does, okay? Does that match your guess? I hope so. Okay. Our next Christmas item we're going to do is, I don't want that to roll off, a pair of scissors. Oftentimes at Christmas time you might use scissors to cut the wrapping paper, right? Okay. What do you think? Sink or float? Okay, here goes nothing. Oh, what did that do? It sank right to the bottom pretty fast, right? And my tape is still floating away. Okay, my next item we'll do is my red Christmas ornament. Can you just imagine this on the Christmas tree? Yeah, it would just hang right there. Okay, do you think my ornament is going to sink or float? All right, let's see. Well, it's on top of the water, so what is it doing? It's floating. Okay, it's just hanging out. It doesn't look like it's moving at all, neither is my tape. So right now we have two floating and one that has sunk. I grabbed a peppermint. One, I thought it was very Christmassy with red and white and blue. I'm gonna open it and take it out of the wrapper, because I don't know, the wrapper might change it. Okay, so here's my peppermint, very Christmassy. Do you think it'll sink or float? And peppermint, if you're not sure, it's like a candy. It's like a mint that you put in your mouth and you suck on. What do you think? Okay, let's see. Oh, another thunk. It sunk to the bottom. Okay, I have one more item. I took a strip of wrapping paper, because we also use this at Christmas time to wrap presents, and we're gonna see if my paper sinks or floats. It's very pretty. It's got presents and candy canes. Very Christmassy. Okay, guys, make your vote. Sink or float? All right, are you ready? Let's see. It's kind of going back to the top. Well, it's got a layer of water on it, and then some is still flipped out on the outside. So right now it's floating. So I have three items that immediately floated. My Christmas ornament, the tape is still sitting there floating, and my paper is still floating. It hasn't all been touched by the water, so that might have changed it. And then my sunken items are my peppermint and my scissors. I wonder what the sunken items have in common versus the items that float. You know, things that float are lighter than water, so that's why they're floating. But things that are heavier than water are gonna sink to the bottom. What if I got in here? Would I sink or I float? Picture this being a big pool. Or when you get in the pool, or you go to the beach. Do you sink or do you float in the water? You might float at first, but eventually you would sink. And why is that? Because you're heavier than the water. But you know, this reminds me of a story when Jesus showed us that he was God by walking on water, which means he was floating on the water. Let's watch that now together.
Jesus had been teaching crowds of people by the Sea of Galilee. It was getting late, so he told his disciples to get into the boat and go to the other side of the sea. Jesus sent the crowds away and went up on the mountain to pray by himself. That evening, the boat was far from the shore, and the wind blew and the waves tossed the boat around. Jesus was still on the mountain alone. Around 3 a.m, Jesus came toward his disciples, walking on the sea. When the disciples saw Jesus, they were terrified. "It's a ghost," they cried. Right away, Jesus spoke to them. "Have courage. It's me. Do not be afraid." Peter answered, "Lord, if it really is you, tell me to come to you on the water." So Jesus said, "Come." Peter got out of the boat and started walking on the water toward Jesus. But when Peter saw how strongly the wind was blowing, he was afraid. Peter began to sink. "Lord, save me," he cried. Jesus reached out his hand and grabbed Peter. Jesus said, "You have little faith. Why did you doubt?" They got into the boat and the wind stopped. Then everyone in the boat worshiped Jesus and said, "Truly, you are the Son of God." Jesus proved that he can be trusted. His miracles, teachings, death, and resurrection showed that he is who he says he is. Only Jesus can save us when we look to him in faith.
Sometimes I think about how frustrated the disciples probably felt at the start of this story. They were tired, hungry, and trying to get a break from the crowd of the people who all followed Jesus. When they saw the huge crowd waiting for Jesus on the other side of the Sea of Galilee, they probably had a lot of anger bubbling up inside them. I know I would have. But how did Jesus respond? The Bible tells us that he saw them and felt compassion. He knew that the crowd was filled with people who were lost sheep. Jesus is a good shepherd, and he wanted to take care of his people. Now think back to the disciples again. As it got later and later, they finally had a chance to get away from the crowd by sending them to go get food. If I had been one of the disciples when Jesus told me to give them food, I might have lost my temper. If being tired, hungry, and surrounded by strangers weren't irritating enough, now Jesus was asking the disciples to do something that was essentially impossible. But it was only impossible for them. Nothing is impossible for God. Jesus didn't say, "Don't worry, I'm going to do a miracle to feed everyone." Instead, he helped his disciples take on the challenge a little bit at a time. First, they found what little food was available. Then, they helped get the whole crowd seated. Next, they passed out the food bit by bit. It's possible they kept expecting the food to run out after each person, but by the end, they had gathered more in leftovers than they had to begin with. Jesus miraculously fed a crowd with 5 loaves and 2 fish. In a way, this can help us see what following Jesus can be like. We won't usually know ahead of time what God's plan for us is. Sometimes we might feel frustrated or overwhelmed, but we can trust Jesus each step of the way. His plans are perfect. He will help us push through and obey. By feeding the 5,000, Jesus provided for the physical needs of the crowd. The next day, Jesus called himself the bread of life. Only Jesus is able to satisfy our souls forever by providing forgiveness, peace with God, and eternal life.